Hello to everyone who's watching this short demo tutorial about setting a big blue button on AWS. So first of all, what the big blue button is? Well, this is this wonderful open source software which you can use for video conferencing, which you can use for distance learning. It is being used in educational institutions across the world. It is free to use, so there is no licenses to pay, such as you would pay with Microsoft Teams or Zoom or any commercial video software. And downside of that, of course, is that you have to set up this software by yourself on your own hardware or on any of the popular cloud platforms. And with AWS being one of those platforms, and the platform that really is highly automatable, which means you can relatively easy through the use of APIs or application programming interfaces create a range of infrastructure elements to run your software. That means you can use this this platform to deploy a big blue button as well. So what I did, I created a small tool using the CloudFormation templates, which is a way of declaratively describing your infrastructure on AWS. So I created templates to launch Big Blue button on the AWS platform. So again, as I said here on the website, you can see it's for teachers, for schools, for developers. You can use it to run online meetup group. I'm part of the one of the online meetups, and we use it to run our meetup, and really it cost us about like maybe $2 or $3 for 2 hours. We used it on AWS, and it's probably cheaper. It is pay as you go. So if you keep your server running for 24/7, you may end up paying $150 to $100 depending on your instance size and depending on your region that you're located on, and depending whether you use it all the time or not, really. So let's get started. This is the repository on a GitHub. It's fully open source. You can use it at your will. I'll leave the link in the video descriptions. So if you go to readme.md, this intersection is mostly like what I have been speaking so far about, but just going through the options. It's a single-click solution to deploy things on AWS, deploy Big Blue button on AWS. You get your SSH password and your administrative password available in SSM, which is AWS service for storing secret data. You can configure a disk size in gigabytes. The disk and your data is encrypted, so if you use a Big Blue button to record any videos or any meeting sessions, all of that data is encrypted at rest. You get daily backups by default, so if anything happens to your server, you can restore from AMI, which stands for Amazon Machine Image. You can connect to the server itself using SSM. The standard way to connect to the servers is SSH, but AWS sort of offers us a bit more streamlined way to do it, which has some upsides from security standpoint. So what is the main prereq to deploy this on AWS really is having your Route 53 hosting zone, meaning your DNS hosting on AWS. So if I go to my Route 53 here, I will see my own domain, which is ntasic.net, hosted on Amazon. So this is really a prereq. You need this working in order to deploy Big Blue button. Next, you want to choose one of these launch stack links or buttons to open CloudFormation Create Stack window. So you just want to choose a region that's closest to you in order to have shortest delay in reaching out the server. So I'm just going to use AP Southeast 2. Now once I clicked here, and as I am logged in my AWS web console, I'm gonna click next. Everything is pre-populated for me, and I'm gonna get some parameters. So admin email is the email that's going to be used to issue your SSL certificate, and it is email that will be used as a default administrator user on the Big Blue Button server. So I'm just gonna put here admin@antosic.net. This is a default SSM, AWS SSM parameter store path where your credentials will be stored. In most default setups, you don't want to change this, but if you're using this to deploy multiple Big Blue Button servers within a single account, you may want to tweak this a bit. Domain name is a fully qualified domain name where you want your server to be located. So I'm just gonna use elearning.antosic.net. So please do remember that this domain needs to be either domain that you're hosting, so it could be just antosic.net, or it needs to be subdomain of your Route 53 hosted zone. Image ID, in most cases you don't want to change this. In the case where you have your server backed up regularly every day, which you do get by the default in this setup, you may want to update your stack with your backed up AMI, but this is for more advanced users. And really, if you have questions like that, just reach out to me on Twitter or on GitHub. Route 53 zone is that zone that you have registered or hosted with Route 53. So I'm just gonna leave this as antosic.net, and instance type is EC2 instance type. This determines your instance size, how many virtual central CPUs it has, how many memory it has. So if we Google T3X large, we're gonna see that T3X large has 4 virtual CPUs, and it has 16 gig of memory. So this is a bit over provisioned than what is minimal recommended spec for Big Blue Button, which is 4 cores and 8 gigs, I believe. But it doesn't hurt because this is really cheap. This is like 16 cents an hour. So if you just want to test things out, or let's say you want to run this 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you may end up in no more than paying $1 or $2 a day, and this will support 20, 30, 40, 50 users being online at the same time, which is most likely cheaper than using some of the commercial available options. So going back to our creation of CloudFormation stack, I'm just going to leave this parameter as is. You can use C4X large or C4 large, which I believe is currently official recommendation from Big Blue Button, which you can find on docs.bigbluebutton.org. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to click next here. I'm going to leave all of the defaults here. I click next again. Tick these 2 boxes, which says this automation script or CloudFormation template will create some identity access management entities, so it will create some security related identities. So you want to accept this because this is required for that server login SSM function to be used. You want that EC2 instance role created, which does have access to SM. So this is a service account. You're not creating any user accounts. So out of the box, what this gives you from infrastructure point of view, it will give you a single VPC, which is virtual private network, so all of the networking elements, and it will deploy server in that network, which does have access to the internet by default. So we can see a backup stack is well created. This contains all of the configuration required for your server backup to work, and has the VPC creation is in progress. So let's take a short look at AWS backup service, see what's in there. So we can see Big Blue Button vault created. There are no backups created as of yet, but the vault is in there, and this is really just container for Amazon Machine Images or AMIs. So we have both our backup substack and VPC stack created. So once the network has been laid out, our CloudFormation template will try to spin up auto-scaling group, which is a way to achieve some high availability and auto-healing functionality on AWS. And that is being created right now. So by the time we get ASG starting to create, what we're going to do is log in into the server itself and look at sort of server setup logs and what they're doing. So we have this instance profile being created, which is an IAM entity that gives permissions to your new server to communicate with this SSM service. So going just for a moment back to our repository, we can find instructions here on how to log in into the server using SSM, which means SSM Session Manager. So that is on AWS. This is alternative to using standard SSH, which does give you an option to not expose your port 22, so it does have enhanced security. So let's take a look at this script for start. First is going to discover what the instance ID it is using EC2 describe instances command and filter them by the state running and the name of Big Blue Button server. It's going to query the instance ID and save it as a text in this instance ID variable. And then we're going to use this AWS SSM start session command to log in into our target instance, where we can follow the Big Blue Button installation log. So let's look at how this works. So I am within my Bash terminal. Just going to copy these commands to discover what is the instance ID. So no error means good, no output means good. We have our instance ID, and now we're going to SSH, that is SSM, into the server. If I was to try to telnet on port 22 to this server, that wouldn't really work. I would be getting a forbidden message. So this is this instance here. You can see I cannot get through using port 22, so this is a security measure. However, if I do AWS SSM start session -- target and giving this particular instance ID, I'm now in the server. I can see a private VPC address being given to this host. So if I do sudo su, I am now root user on the Big Blue Button server that is being set up currently through this CloudFormation script. I can do EC2 metadata. I can see all of the parameters, what is the local IP, what is currently the public IP. I can see the whole script that's being used to set up this. And I can actually tail the log, which means tail the log. It's looking at the latest log entries in the var log cloud init output. So this is location on any EC2 instance where this cloud init script is storing its output. So let's take a look at what's in there. We can see that there is a lot of activity going on in here, which means Big Blue Button server is being set up. And it really does install quite a few packages on your server. So I'm just gonna stop this video recording at this point and wait for the whole setup to complete, and then we can go on to the next step and log into your Big Blue Button server, but from the web user interface, where you can do administrative actions. You can set up video chatting rooms, you can invite other users, you can disable server sign-up, so not anyone can sign up to your video conferencing software, and so on. But more on that a bit later. So now that our Cloud Init script has completed its setup, we can go on and log into the Big Blue Button server. Now, this tailing the setup script is really not something you need to do in order to get things up and running. It is here more for demonstration purposes, to show you how, if you wanted to do it, how you could do it, and it's also here to show you if you want to log into your server on that operating system level, how do you do that through AWS Session Manager. So we can see that this has signal setup complete to CloudFormation using some random ID. It says Big Blue Button server setup complete. It says that it has written some SSM parameter values that we will now use to retrieve the default administrator password for the Big Blue Button web UI. So I'm just gonna exit the server completely. I am now back on my local machine. So if we go back to this README file on GitHub repository, there is a script to extract administrator password, user, and the server URL for AWS parameter store, which was, and these values were created through the setup. And now remember, folks, this is all automated. I'm just describing what's going on. Basically, after clicking that create stack button, there's nothing much you need to do. So let's copy and paste this script into my local host. Of course, this requires for you to have AWS credentials set up, AWS CLI set up, and is something that's assumed that the basics is something that you do have in your knowledge base. So I executed this script, and I can see username is admin@antosic.net, and there is this random password here, and I'm getting this URL. So let's give this a crack. I can see the server is up and running, which is awesome. So for a relatively short 20-minute setup, I got video conferencing software up and running on AWS, protected using a free SSL certificate. If I inspect this certificate, you see it's issued by Let's Encrypt, and email should be somewhere in here, or it maybe is not, but that email password is email address that you put in as stack parameter is associated with this Let's Encrypt issued SSL certificate. Now let's try and sign in using this username and password that was provided through the script located at the GitHub repository. And voila! I have my video conferencing software up and running. I can start session. I have my default room here. I can go to administration section, which is this organization here. And from here you can really manage users, create and manage server rooms. You can see what are all of the video recordings, general site settings, different user roles. So all of these configuration settings you will find. So if you find administration and configuration setting here, green light, configure admin. So on this web URL you will really find all of the docs you need to configure the Big Blue Button UI and to configure the users. And if I start web chat, I'm gonna try and connect. It says allow. I'm gonna do the test. I can hear the echo. I can start recording. I can enable my webcam. Chrome will ask me about it. Now you can't see anything here as I have my privacy overlay over my camera, but you can see my thumb finger. You can select the quality, you can share. There's all kinds of other functionality, and again folks, this is all documented, but you can write annotations on the whiteboard. You can turn multi-user whiteboard on, you can type text, you can draw lines, you can invite other people, but copying and paste this invite URL. You have all of the administration functionality here. You can ban users, you can invite users, you can protect this room with a specific invite code if you want to give this to your students, or you want to have that extra layer of protection. And again, this is all documented in docs.bigbluebutton.org. And while this setup really does focus on AWS part of things. So in our CloudFormation, we can see our Big Blue Button stack being updated, created and updated. We can see there is a VPC created with the Big Blue Button. It's called BBB VPC. There is a default CIDR if you want to change any of these configuration settings, or if you want to deploy Big Blue Button into your own VPC. Go read through the README file. Here it has all of these advanced configuration settings instructions how to do so, but the key point is changing some of these config.yaml files that there are in the repo. So there is, let's say, a VPC config.yaml, and there is bigbluebutton.config.yaml. So if I was to clone this repo, change into the working directory, and let's say I want to just not use the VPC that comes with the solution itself, but use my own VPC. There is this render VPC configuration value in here. So I'm just gonna say vbbb.config.yaml. I'm gonna set render VPC configuration setting to false. And then, assuming that you do have Docker and Docker Compose and Make installed on your workstation, I can just do make publish, I believe. Make publish. And CloudFormation templates with this new configuration will be generated and uploaded to destination bucket. It says requested bucket name is not available, so I will need to set this distribution bucket setting. You can see the command has completed. with no errors. And there is this console output that says, here's the URL if you want to launch the stack with this newly generated CloudFormation templates. I'm just going to copy and paste this into my address bar. And I can see that there are some new parameters here now, namely subnet IDs. It says, well, I don't really want to create a VPC for your Big Blue Button server. I want to place this into my own VPC, but please give me some subnets where to place EC2 instances. So that would really be it for this basic setup. Thanks for going through the tutorial video. Thanks for watching, and please do leave any comments if you have, and any questions that you may have in the comment sections below.